Welcome to Tusi TV. This is your global news channel. I'm Maya Tusi, and we come to you guys with some breaking news coming from the Middle East. Things are kicking off as we speak in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. The United States military are mobilizing their troops, and the Israeli Defense Forces are also prepared to join the war in Iran. Apologies for a slight delay. The whole system malfunctioned 1 minute before we were supposed to be coming live. Everything's fine now. Everything was reset and we can continue. All right, so some of you might have already heard over the last few hours we have had some weird issues in the Middle East. Earlier this afternoon, the IRGC announced that they have once again closed the Strait of Hormuz. Now, things have been relatively less stable than yesterday for the Islamic regime in Iran. The infighting is reaching a whole new level. Literally nobody knows who is actually in charge in Iran. But we're going to give you guys the latest on this. First, we're going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz and what's actually been going on. After the announcement earlier by the IRGC, the Central Military Command said that the Strait of Hormuz has returned to its previous state before the ceasefire and is under strict control of the IRGC and will remain so until the United States lifts its blockade. Now, we had already the IRGC blockade of Hormuz. Then we had the United States imposing a blockade on the blockade. And now we have the IRGC imposing a blockade on the blockade on the blockade. So you can see there's a couple of issues with this, is because the Islamic Republic don't seem to have an actual strategy except for keep pushing and poking the bear. So we've had now clashes erupting in the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Multiple vessels, international commercial vessels, have now been hit by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from Iran. We have had 2 vessels from India. The Indian government are not happy about this, of course. The Indians claim that the Iranian side made a mistake because they actually had already given permission to one of the vessels to go through. They gave them clearance, but the IRGC were not listening. We have this audio communication from one of the Indian oil tankers, Sanmar Herald, that were pleading to the IRGC to stop firing and were saying, you literally gave us clearance. We were next in the line. Let's go.
Navy, motor tanker Sanmar. Navy, motor tanker Sanmar Herald, Sepa Navy, you gave me clearance. You gave me clearance to go. Sepa Navy, this is motor tanker Sanmar Herald. You gave me clearance to go. My name is second on your list.
Now they're going to start firing.
To go. You are firing now. Let me turn back.
And now they started hitting the tanker. Now, following this, we also had a number of other vessels that were targeted. It seems like because there's no actual central leadership right now in Iran, everybody's gone rogue. All the mid-ranking commanders in each part of divisions or units across the military of the IRGC, I think they genuinely think that they're in charge of the whole thing. I was speaking to my dad, who's still stuck in Tehran, and he said that the way people are describing the situation in Iran is that whoever wakes up first in the regime, on that day, he will decide, I'm in charge now. So whoever gets there first and calls the shots, basically, they call shotgun, no pun intended. But the IRGC and so-called Navy, the naval officers who are still alive without the naval assets, are now also publicly mocking their own foreign minister. The infighting is so bad that it is now in public. So as you guys know, there are different parts of the Islamic regime. Everybody's fighting each other. You got the government side, you got the IRGC military, you got the clerics, the ayatollahs, and you got random groups as well. But the IRGC Navy, they were sending a message to the world and to obviously the commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, making fun of the foreign minister because Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister, yesterday posted on X saying that, yes, we have agreed with the Americans, we're going to open the Strait of Hormuz. The rest of the IRGC said, shut the F up. You're not in charge. You're just a puppet as foreign minister. Listen to this.
In Persian Gulf and Oman Sea. This is Iranian Sepah Navy calling you on channel 16. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. We will open it by the order of our leader Imam Khamenei, not by the tweets of some idiots. If you want to pass through the strait, you must ask permission from Iranian Sepah Navy. All vessels that have a connection with our enemies will be targeted if they try to pass the Strait of Hormuz out.
Wow. Yes, as he said, we're not going to give you permission based on tweets by some idiots, as in the foreign minister Abbas Araghchi. Now, we reported first on 2C TV yesterday that the infighting has gone so bad that the IRGC are now coming for Abbas Araghchi. Of course, the legacy media were denying those claims, and we have yet more evidence. And Abbas Araghchi has not been seen for a couple of days because they're not letting him talk anymore. Since yesterday, when he did that public post on X, obviously saying that we have decided to open the Strait of Hormuz, he has not done any other statements, no other posts, nothing. He's not allowed to say anything anymore. I'll be surprised if he's still alive at this point. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces are now on standby. They are prepared to get involved as well. There is a message to the Iranians released by the IDF's Persian spokesperson. Let's go there.
هنوز برای جنبندی نهایی این نبرد زود است. رئیس ستاد کل ارتش اسرائیل ایران را به عنوان صحنه اصلی آمادگی برای ما تعریف کرده است. لذا هواپیماهای نیروی هوایی در حالت آماده باش و مسلح می باشند و اهداف در سامانه‌های ما ثبت شدند تا در صورت نیاز فوراً حمله قدرتمند را آغاز کرده و به نبرد بازگردیم. ارتش اسرائیل به اقدام خود برای آینده ما به عنوان مردمی آزاد در این سرزمین ادامه خواهد داد.
In case you couldn't read the small subtitles, of course, they're saying that the Israeli Defense Forces are on standby, and of course everything is ready to go, and the goals for Israel has not changed, and that is to bring down the regime in Iran. Now, on that point, the United States military continue to mobilize their troops. So this ceasefire was not really a ceasefire for peaceful purposes. It was to simply regroup, rally the troops, and get some of them to rest for a little bit, but also redeployment of the others. The USS Gerald R. Ford is now in the theater of war. We now have the aircraft carrier that is now in the Red Sea operating. Over the last few days, everybody was waiting for this to arrive. They are now conducting operations in the Red Sea in support of the United States Central Command, or CENTCOM. Now, Thursday, about a couple of days ago, USS Gerald R. Ford hit 296 days at sea, which is a record for the longest deployment the aircraft carrier has had since the Cold War. Now, we know, and I'm going to show you more evidence of the deployment of the US military troops towards Iran over the last few hours, but the most important thing that we now have is the breaking news that just came minutes before we came live to talk to you guys, and that is from the President of the United States, who has now given a new window, a deadline, by the end of tonight. Now, we've seen the pattern. In June 2025, the so-called 12-day war, we didn't see any military action until President Trump created a window. not a deadline for deal, not a deadline for negotiations, the window, the final deadline, following ultimatum. And once that was reached, we saw the attacks. We saw the same thing in February, when the US president said, well, this is the final window. And now he came earlier on and he said, by the end of tonight, he will know whether there is any chance of a deal with the Islamic Republic or not. We know what that means. We've seen this game before. Now, Wednesday is technically the official final day of the ceasefire. Despite the fake news and rumors that came out over the last few days, that deadline has not been extended so far. And technically on Monday, we were supposed to be having negotiations, but the Islamic Republic have not confirmed that. And President Trump has now said, I will decide by the end of tonight. The Deputy Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic, Saeed Khatibzadeh, responded by saying that President Trump talks too much, apparently.
President Trump said that if there is no agreement on Wednesday, there will be a return to the military action. Then let's President Trump talk. He talks too much. He said contradictory things within the same statement. This cannot be prevailed. I don't know what exactly he meant. The American people must decide about him if his statements are aligned, and if they are going with international law, then we will continue our defense.
Now, this is fascinating because obviously this is propaganda, right? Any statement from any politician is controlled, right? Even during their responses to the media, they sort of admit that we don't understand. President Trump contradicts himself in the same statement. Every time he says something, he's saying random things. Yes, that's the whole point. The whole point is that this is the Trump tactic. And the funny thing is, we've had President Trump for years now. And there are so many idiots who continue to not understand Trump language. From both sides. The pro-Trump side and the anti-Trump side. The pro-IRGC side, anti-IRGC side. President Trump has been saying a lot of crazy things, right? The last few days. Contradictory, none of it made sense, confusing, on purpose. And we've had some of the people who are anti-IRGC, they are pro-Iranian people, saying, oh, President Trump just said, this is a week ago, half a week ago, President Trump just said that there's a deal, we've got a deal. The Islamic Republic have already agreed to everything. It's like, calm down, calm down. And then in the same statement saying, we're going to hit them hard. Like, it's so confusing. What's the president doing? It's literally on purpose. And obviously the markets keep reacting up, down, like it's so predictable. But of course, nobody wants to take that risk every single time. They're like, wait, what if? Is this a bluff? Is this a double bluff? Is this a triple bluff? That's why the latest that we now have from the Islamic Republic is that they have still not agreed to the next round of talks, which is supposed to be happening on Monday, by the way, in Pakistan. We got 2 days to go. They haven't actually confirmed that they will be attending. Now, they agreed that the talks should be happening on Monday, but I think one of the reasons that they haven't confirmed is because they don't know who to send. Nobody trusts anybody. It's not really just about their relationship with President Trump. It's not really about them not trusting the Americans. They don't even trust themselves. They don't trust each other. They don't know who's supposed to be representing the Islamic Republic. And at this point, they also fear that they might get taken out a little bit. Now, this is what the Americans are doing, meanwhile. A huge US military buildup is currently happening, has been happening over the last few hours and the last few days, as you can see on the live map, towards, latest footage, into the Middle East. We've had equipment, munitions, critical logistics, extra personnel, obviously troops, everybody moving from the US to Europe, from Europe to the Middle East. And that is still non-stop. Well, a lot of people believed for some stupid reason, the people who go on Tim Pool's podcast, the Timcast IRL or whatever it is, and the other so-called podcasters who take things literally as they hear, because they take Trump literally instead of taking him seriously. They've been saying, well, ceasefire, that's the end of the war. President Trump said there is a deal. Well, we are hoping that the IRGC would submit to the surrender deal, but so far, nope, not yet. The saga continues. Now, the Indian government are not happy with the Islamic regime. India have now summoned Iran's ambassador following two of their commercial vessels, the oil tankers that were attacked by the IRGC Navy in the Strait of Hormuz. One of the tankers came under fire from the IRGC gunboats, or their so-called small fast boats that they have. They're not large ships. And another one was hit by a drone. Lovely, right? Now, there have been some miscommunication, as we showed you earlier on in the audio communication that we had. But all this shows that the IRGC are not ready to surrender. They're not ready to submit. They don't want to because they can't. You can't blame them, can you? So, the Israeli Defense Forces are also getting ready. This is the latest we have from tonight, a few minutes ago, in the northern parts of Israel. The Israeli Air Force are being activated. Fighter jets flying around. Now, while we're supposed to be having a ceasefire in Lebanon, we're going to be able to use a lot of the IDF assets in Iran at the same time. The regime in Tehran are also getting so desperate for support that obviously they had to bring in a lot of the foreign mercenaries from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And all these proxies who are currently in Iran, who were already told to just come anyway, feel free to invade Iran. But the regime now have to beg them and give them money to stay on the streets to show support at these IRGC rallies that we are seeing. It's the same thing we saw in Syria a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, towards the end of Assad's regime, where you had all these pro-Assad rallies. We had tens of thousands of people in Damascus with Assad flags and everything else. And then obviously when he fled, everything fell apart. Now we have this, look at this video. The IRGC literally paying money. They're giving money. Now, for those who are not familiar with this is not the first time. Iranians know what this is. The Iranian people have been seeing this for 47 years. The IRGC always give money to people who attend rallies to show support. Arab.
وكبار الحيدرية يقومون بتوزيع المبالغ المالية على الفقراء والمتعففين في العاصمة طهران، وكما تشاهدون يعني الآن توزيع وجبات طعام مستمرة من الصباح وحتى المساء. إن شاء الله سنوافيكم بكل التفاصيل.
Apparently there's a lot of support. Everybody is united and they are ready and the atmosphere is great, but they still have to bribe people to be there, including the foreign mercenaries who have already been told to be there anyway. This is a sign of a dying regime. Now we're going to talk about what President Trump has been up to over the last few hours by holding an urgent security meeting in the Situation Room in the White House. Before we get to that, a couple of reactions. Angela says, Maya, any news on your team? Yes, I forgot to actually give you guys an update. I assume that you guys follow TCTV on social media and on our website. Yeah, clearly, if you have a question about what happened earlier today, you're not following us on X. Follow us on X, you'll find out. At 2CTV Official. just a quick summary. If you haven't seen the previous live stream, our 2C TV team was sent to France to film a documentary about the migrant crisis in Europe. The French authorities arrested our team. They were detained for over 8 hours without any explanation, without being charged. We had to get in touch with the British Embassy in Paris and get in touch with the lawyers. A lot of stuff happened. They were finally released without charge. In fact, we have received an apology from both the head of the police in Calais, the chief, and also the judge. I was surprised that they managed to find a judge on Saturday in France, but that was impressive. But so yeah, our team have received an apology. If you haven't seen the update, go watch it after this, because that was a whole dramatic situation as they got arrested. So we are now filming a documentary about the migrant crisis in Calais, which will be on 2C TV Plus, and you can join 2C TV Plus, as you can see under the screen, by going to 2c.tv. All right, let's talk about President Trump. What has he been up to? Watch this footage. This is General Kane, who earlier on attended the White House. So we have President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and the White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, the White House Envoy Steve Witkoff, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and, as I said, the Joint Chiefs Chairman, General Kane. All these people attended an urgent security meeting in the Situation Room, and following that, we had the announcement by President Trump that he will decide by the end of tonight. So obviously currently it is 5:25 p.m. Eastern Time if you are watching this live. If you're watching this on repeat, obviously, it's not 5:25. By the end of tonight, we are going to see a lot of activities. We have somebody in capital letters shouting, saying, "Unrighteous lies from 2C TV." 2C is a Trump-supporting TV channel. Hang on. This accusation, this huge accusation that we are pro-President Trump. I don't know where he got that from. Uncle Donald, what do you think? Do you think we are pro-MAGA? Yes. I don't know why Trump talks like this. Yes. Yes. No S, Sherlock. Trump is getting heavy. This is gold. Or an absolute nutter. We have the president, but also Greg the Goat, both working together to create a lot of martyrs in the IRGC so that they could get their 72 virgin goats. All right, you can sit down, Uncle Donald, for a second. There we go. Anyway, let's go to Tehran, as we have more checkpoints that have been set up during the ceasefire, because they're not really terrified of Israeli drones hitting them or the US strikes. This is the latest footage we have from the city. Everywhere. The funny thing is, see all these guys who are standing there on the streets of Tehran with confidence. We are in charge. Firstly, they're there because they're absolutely terrified. While they're scared of the Israelis and the Americans, they are more terrified of the Iranian people starting another uprising. That's why they're there. They are terrified of the uprising. But they're standing there with confidence, right? They're all there, out in the open. The moment the strikes begin, they're all going to go into the holes again because they don't want to become martyrs. Not really. They say they do, but ideally they don't want to die. Now, if this was not terrifying enough for you guys to be scared of the IRGC with their tents on the streets, well, we're going to now introduce you to a new brigade. inside the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on the streets of Tehran. We have the Fatih Commando Brigade. Yes, literally called Fatih Commando. Fatih. And this is the IRGC women in hijabs, like penguins, well, ninjas basically, like ninjas. And driving pink, actually pink Jeeps. These are the armored vehicles at this point because they got machine guns on top of it. And these are what I call the Jihadi Barbies. Jihadi Barbies. Pink. So good. Now, firstly, obviously, these are not burqas. Obviously, if it were burqas, then they would be ninjas or letterboxers. But the chador means that these guys are basically the Dementors from Harry Potter. They used to be in charge of the prison, Azkaban. What was it called? Azkaban? It's been a few years. But the Dementors are now on the streets of Tehran. The Fatih Commando Brigades continue with their pink vehicles. Meanwhile, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps continue their infighting out in the open, which is a little bit embarrassing. They're now doing it also on the Islamic Republic state media. The hardliners seem to be very much united against the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, which is getting slightly funnier than before. This is Hossein Park, who has been attacking today Abbas Araghchi on their propaganda machine and saying that we should not abandon Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. He says that the 10 demands that were set by the IRGC for these negotiations to the US are non-negotiable. And he accused Abbas Araghchi and the rest of the negotiating team from the Islamic Republic of lacking confidence and being traitors. He's claimed that the foreign minister is acting independently and his views do not align with the regime's core principles and policies. The guy is in charge of Foreign Office, but apparently is not in charge of the Foreign Office. Now, they have labeled him the JCPOA diplomat because he is soft, which is the funny thing is, the JCPOA, the so-called Iran deal that was signed in 2015 between the Islamic Republic and Barack Hussein Obama was so unpopular from all sides. You had obviously our side and President Trump, Uncle Donald, didn't like it. You didn't like it, did you? No. But you think that in Iran, that deal was popular? No. The Islamic Republic still saw that deal as a huge compromise. They saw it as a surrender deal. That's why they also decided to basically break it by just enriching uranium regardless. And then President Trump came and said, whoa, what is happening here? Seems like Obama's administration didn't even care to monitor the nuclear activity in Iran after the deal. And now we're in this mess. So obviously Uncle Donald had to cancel the deal. But the deal was not even liked by the IRGC. We do have some more good news, by the way, because we have now received confirmation from the Israeli Defense Forces that the senior Hezbollah commander, Ali Reda Abbas, or who was known as Haj Abu Hussein Barich, has now been eliminated by the Israeli Defense Forces in Lebanon. So another one bites the dust, which means that, of course, we have Greg the Goat, who, in case you're not familiar with this channel, he is the representative of the 72 virgin goats, because that's all they get, the martyrs. He's now going to be busy tonight introducing the latest jihadi to his virgins. So Greg is now going to leave us. He's going to go and do his business with the new martyr. And also, for those of you who have been, again, somehow watching the establishment media like CNN or CBC or BBC or all the other letters, or maybe you've been brainwashed to watch random rogue and illogical podcasters to get your news for some reason. I don't know why some people watch podcasts to get news. Just watch news channels to get the news. Or just be on X at this point. You might be wondering who's actually in charge of Iran right now. The Speaker of Parliament, Ghalibaf. We've talked about him a lot. Ghalibaf, who, again, the people on Tim Pool's podcast a few weeks back, a couple of weeks ago, thought that President Trump has been talking to him to appoint him as the interim president, interim Ayatollah or whatever in Iran. And when I called it out, apparently our channel, 2C TV, and me personally with my connections to Iran, I don't know anything, but they do. They were saying that Ghalibaf and all the others, the other podcasters saying Ghalibaf is actually a moderate. He's actually different, mostly because he doesn't have a big beard, right? And there have been a lot of people who've been brainwashed thinking that Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Parliament, yeah, he's the guy you can deal business with. He's the new Gorbachev, right? Well, here's a report of who Ghalibaf actually is. Let's go.
You've probably been hearing Ghalibaf's name a lot these days. A man suddenly appearing in talk about dealing with the United States. But who is Ghalibaf exactly? At first glance, he looks like a serious political figure, one of the most visible men in the Islamic Republic. But that is not what he really is. Ghalibaf is not an independent politician. He is not a new answer, and he is not a man who built himself on his own. He is a product of the IRGC system, raised inside it, shaped by it, and kept for the right moment. That is why he has always looked less like a civilian leader and more like another version of Qasem Soleimani. One was presented as the face of the battlefield, the other was polished for politics. But both came from the same machine. And this is also a man surrounded by years of corruption allegations. During his time as mayor of Tehran, reports pointed to massive financial irregularities, from discounted transfers of public properties to billions in missing or mismanaged municipal funds. His name has also been tied to major cases linked to IRGC economic networks, where billions of dollars were alleged to be involved. And his world was never far from violence either. His ties to the IRGC and to Qasem Soleimani placed him inside the same system that relied on tactics like roadside bomb warfare, the kind that later became one of the deadliest threats to American forces in the region. Ghalibaf was prepared for a moment like this, not as a symbol of change, but as a tool of survival. That is why selling him as a moderate or as a solution is misleading, because in the end, he is not the answer to Iran's future. He is just another face of the same system. And that matters because Iran's future will not be decided by the men the regime keeps recycling. It will be decided by the people. And the people of Iran have already shown the world who they see as their alternative. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. And as always, light wins over darkness.
Special thanks to our 2C TV team for providing us with this. Of course, all this information is out in the public. They're not speculative or opinions. This is his background, which you can also just do manual research to find out. But having said that, at this point, it doesn't really matter because there are big issues. The big issue is Ghalibaf might not even survive the next few weeks or the next few days. Not because of the Americans and not because of the Israelis, but because of the infighting. Although his side might be able to win. We have a retard in the live chat saying the report of 2C being arrested in France would seem to have been greatly exaggerated. Number one, there has been no report of me being arrested in France. So you are spreading fake news. Nobody has even claimed that I was arrested in France because I am not in France, you idiot. I am in London, the capital of the former British Empire. I'm not really sure where you got that from, but nope. I have not been arrested and nobody has said that I have been arrested. Of course, on the issue of the rest of our team, that's a whole different thing. So And they have now been released. And we got the apology from the judge and the chief of police in Calais. Although there was, I think there was an article that said, where is the article we found? I think they said, what is it called? Yeah, there was an article, I'm going to show you. I think this one says Dunkirk instead of, is it Dunkirk? I think I said, instead of Calais. There we go, so I'm going to put this on quickly. This was what we got when it was reported. I don't know, yeah, on this one it doesn't say. Yeah, French police arrest CCTV team while filming documentary on illegal English Channel crossings. This article was not really... Yeah, there was another article that said something about different location, basically. Anyway, going back... Bill says, is anyone in charge in the IRGC? No, as I said, the way my dad described it, obviously, was his personal opinion, but that's what basically people are saying, unofficially, that whoever wakes up first in the morning in the IRGC, they can call shotgun and they're in charge for the rest of the day. But in reality, basically, they're all calling shots for their own areas, wherever they are and what division they are running. And there is no central leadership. And this is becoming a bit of a problem because as things get heated over the next few days, they're going to need some sort of unity. Otherwise, the defeat is going to be too easy. So strategies were being used against them. And the captain was hard to understand. Was he talking about my car's extended warranty? I get the joke. Where is the IRGC firing from? I thought they had no navy left. Yeah, they don't have the big ships anymore. All of them are at the bottom of the sea. But as President Trump said, they have these small, so-called fast boats. They're tiny boats, basically. They just drive. They sail through the Persian Gulf and they start shooting. But most of the attacks are coming from the drones, which is from mainland Iran or the islands. And they just launch their drones, suicide drones, towards these vessels. You're effing with reptilians. They want your head. Keep your head down. 5 months ago, France arrested your people for filming. Hang on. Have we time traveled forward? It wasn't 5 months ago. It was 9 hours ago. Also, why are we talking about the lizards? It is Saturday, I guess. Everyone goes crazy at this time. Alright, you done messed up. I think that's supposed to say Iran instead of Iran. Otherwise, the joke would make no sense. Do you think that the regime can only collapse through a ground invasion and with the help of militias armed by the USA? It's not ground invasion, so yeah, the regime will collapse. Well, any regime in history would only collapse when you have things happening on the ground. So that could be a ground invasion of a foreign force, or it could be by the people. But again, when we say people on the ground in Iran, I'm not saying people going on the street protesting. Oh, I demand democracy, I demand freedom. You don't do this. People in Iran have been trying that for like 47 years. Keep protesting. Protesting doesn't do anything. You get killed if you protest against a dictatorship. Now it's time to fight. If they get armed, some of them are now armed, but not all of them. The only situation would be the people who get armed, who know how to fight, then they can take control. Every example throughout history has been the same thing. It will have to happen on the ground, whether it's by the ground forces or by the people of a country. Obviously, again, in Iran, it's been difficult because people have been mostly unarmed. And they get killed if they try to take over a building. But they still managed to do it. If you remember, during the uprising, they managed to take control of police stations and the Basij units. But the problem with that was that there was no actual strategy. So they were taking over these buildings and they were setting fire to it and they would just leave. And because that would be, what are they going to do next? They didn't know what to do next. So they would just set fire to it. But during the 1970s, when the communists and the Islamists were working together to bring down the monarchy in Iran, they knew what to do. It was a small group, but they were armed, And they were going around shooting at everybody, shooting at police officers, shooting at buildings and taking over buildings. And that's how they did it. How are Iranians able to talk with the outside world? On the phone, and also those who have internet using the Starlink devices. Prophecy 8. And the US should start negotiating with the prince. That doesn't really work. You don't. That's not how it works. It's not in charge. What are you going to negotiate with? It's not how it works. You have to wait for the crown prince to go to Iran first, and when is the transitional leader in power, then you can negotiate. Also, you don't need to negotiate because he'll be on your side. There's no need to negotiate with someone who's already on your side. So they've already been talking. Obviously, Steve Witkoff and the crown prince have already had those meetings over the last few months. As between Starmer and Macron, who is the top? I would say Macron, and that says a lot, but you know, if I had to pick. At this point, it's pretty clear that the IRGC have very low IQs. They definitely are not the smartest out of anyone they know firsthand. Trump doesn't play. I feel a hard slap coming, and that dude is right. We love Trump. How can the Iranian people have any chance to fight against these foreign fighters? Is there any plan? I'm not in charge. I can't explain that, unfortunately. But the overall plan is obviously, well, the overall intention, I guess, and objective is to make sure that the foreign mercenaries who are on the streets, they get taken out, whether it's by drones, whether it's by strikes or ground forces, and then the rest of the Iranian people who still, at this point, they have been told not to come out. The Crown Prince, President Trump, Admiral Cooper, Prime Minister Netanyahu, they've all said, not now. Stay at home. We're still in the middle of war. Might be a temporary pause, but still wartime. Now is not the time to come out. The moment they're told to come out, obviously, they're waiting for the order coming from the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi. That's when they're going to do it. Can't watch all night. It's WrestleMania. Do people still watch that? So get on with the geopolitics. No. Do the goats have a choice? I didn't think they were into bestiality. No, the whole point of these 72 virgin goats is that it's a bit of a surprise. Sort of like the Kinder eggs. These guys who become martyrs, they think they're going to get 72 virgin girls. But they're in a bit of a surprise. That'd be the reason we employed Greg the Goat, is to tell the world that the virgins are not actually human. The virgins are goats. Burp, burp, burp. That's why. And at this rate, the average age of senior official at both the IRGC and Hezbollah about to be 20 years old. Yeah, have you noticed that every time we now make an announcement of somebody being eliminated, they're getting younger and younger. All the older ones have already been killed. Once all the US forces are in theater and position, the IRGC regime and all its forces get dealt with for the last time. Trump didn't bring out devastating military for a ceasefire treaty. Trump will end this his way. This is the thing. If we go with the situation where technically Wednesday, or we might be in a bit of a surprise in terms of when the US military take action, if we get to a point where President Trump pulls the trigger, gives the green light to both the IDF and the US military, after everything that we've gone through, the 12-day war, the March-April campaign, this time round, there's not going to be any mercy, any red lines. There is no other option but to go all out until the end. And this time, there is definitely justification because, again, to create legitimacy, a bit of pause, a bit of a 2-week ceasefire, right? To give a chance to the IRGC. Obviously, that's just been a tactic because the ceasefire has been used to redeploy the military and mobilize them. But to the international community, you could say, hey, we gave him another chance. We've given them so many chances. If they still refuse to sign the surrender deal on Monday and by Wednesday, And if we see the US military launching, I can assure you, they're going to go until the end. No more compromises. Because if we see compromises, there's going to be a bit of a surprise for the rest of us. In my opinion, I haven't been watching you for long. I can say your credibility outweighs Tim Pool. Usually Tim is reading from the mainstream media articles. Yeah, I mean, it's a podcast, so they don't really... It's interesting. Sometimes some of these podcasters, I'm not talking about Tim exactly, but some have been selling themselves as if they are giving you the news. But what they do is they just put the screenshots of a news article from a newspaper or website, mainstream media. It's a mainstream media outlet, and I read it. I'm like, why? You're getting your news from the mainstream, and you can react to it. A reaction channel, a political commentary. That's fine. Everybody needs that, but it's not news. So. Big one here, thank you, from Missouri, saying 2 weeks of fresh targeting with a third strike group inbound. This will be biblical. A little bit. God, the best friend says to release the sausages. That's what Starmer said. IRGC is like the Lord of the Flies. Basically, yeah, at this point. The USA is about to go into full Hulk smash mode. It was a joke based on it. You done messed up Iran. So bad. Anyway, I knew it was a joke. Okay, so just to double check the latest development, what is happening with my live feed? Our team are not helping. Hang on. Okay, no. We do have this from the US intelligence saying that the Islamic Republic have managed to retain about 40% of its drones and roughly 60% of its missile launchers. Not the missiles, but the missile launchers. The missiles, they still have 70%, which means that the job is not done. And the Americans now know this, and they're going to have to go all out. We will, of course, keep you guys posted on this channel as usual. As I said, our team have now been released from jail in France. And from tomorrow morning, they will continue to film our documentary, our Calais documentary about the migrant crisis in Europe. You can watch that if you want. If you don't want to, then I can't really help you with that. You can watch that on 2C TV Plus by becoming a member. I'm trying to see if we have the... Yeah, we do. Yeah, good. Hang on. There we go. You can watch that on 2C TV Plus by becoming a member by visiting 2c.tv or just scan the QR code you can see right here next to my head. If you're watching on your TV, and become a member today to also get full access to our documentaries, original series, and our chat forum if you want to talk to me and like-minded people. And also by becoming a member, you get notifications every time we go live on YouTube. Of course, 2CTV Plus is separate to YouTube. Don't click on the join thing on YouTube. Nothing to do with us. That's controlled by Google and YouTube. You won't get any benefits. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya 2C. And we are the media.